All right, Alexandra, let's talk about what's going on in Italy. We have another caretaker government, another unelected technocrat who has been put in power by the European Union, and that is Mario Draghi, Super Mario, who was at one time head of the ECB, and now he is the new leader of Italy. This has happened before in the past, not only with Italy, but with other countries when they don't get the results that they want, or when they want to stop a result that will be unfavorable to the European Union. They subvert democracy and they put in place their own leader. And in this case, we have Mario Draghi now being put in place to run Italy. No votes, no democracy, none of that. He has just been placed there by the technocrats, bureaucrats, globalist elite in the EU. What do you make of what's going on in Italy?
Well, this is it. I mean, first of all, your point is absolutely spot on. I mean, I've just done a program for my own channel, which I made the point that in spring 2018, the Italian people voted a Eurosceptic government. There's been no election since then. That's the parliament that is elected. And we end up, as a result, with a government that's now going to be led by the most well-known EU technocrat in Italy, Mr. Euro himself, former chair of the central bank, European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, the man who cut off Greece. You remember all of that? The man who was really hard towards Cyprus, the high priest of the euro. So we've gone from one position, which is the one the Italian people voted for, to the absolutely opposite one, which was chosen for them by their political class. And this isn't just true of Italy, it's true of the entire EU area now. It's becoming the pattern. But what is going to happen? What is Mario Draghi going to do as Prime Minister of Italy? Well, first of all, it's important to say that it's not clear that he has a majority in the Italian Parliament, and I wonder how stable his government is actually going to be. They're pulling out all the stops, as you rightly said, to prevent an election, which they know the right would win by a landslide. There's now a possibility that if there was an election, Salvini's Northern League and the brothers would win enough votes to form a coalition by themselves, a majority coalition, without actually having to rely on Silvio Berlusconi and his Forza Italia party. So public sentiment in Italy is drifting increasingly towards the Eurosceptic right. That is clearly what the political class in Rome and Brussels and Frankfurt and Berlin and Paris are worried about, and that's why Draghi has been brought in. But what can Draghi actually do? Can he actually do to change the economic weather in Italy? Well, I'm going to make a guess that what he's actually going to do is he's going to work behind the scenes with the Germans, who are his friends, to see if he can get more money from Germany, at least to keep the problems papered over for as long as possible, in the hope that something will turn up. This is what the EU is increasingly reduced to doing. It finds some way to keep the thing moving forward, even as the underlying problems build up and deteriorate. And in Italy, they're getting very bad. It looks as if Italy's facing another recession this year. It's had no real recovery now for 20 years. It's been facing either stagnation or recession, but it's never really seen growth for the last 20 years. Its debt levels are rising fast. They were around 110, 15% of GDP when the election took place in spring 2018. They're now around 160 to 170% of GDP. They're probably going to grow even further. This is completely unsustainable. But Mario Draghi is the person they hope is going to persuade the Germans to give more money to Italy, or rather to the Italian elite who run Italy, and who will be able to persuade his very good friend Christine Lagarde to keep the money pouring out of the European Central Bank and buying Italian bonds. And that's what it's all about now. It's not about changing the situation in Italy itself. It's about papering over the cracks and allowing the situation to continue for as long as possible in the hope that something sometime, somewhere, is going to turn up. Now, is this sustainable? I have to say, I doubt it, but I've said this many times. It has always astonished me how long the EU technocracy are able to keep this thing going. But logically, we should see Draghi's government fall within months. We should see elections happen. We should see Salvini and the right win them. And then we will see what they do. That's the logical outcome of all of this. But we've seen how far and to what an extent and to what an extreme degree the political class in Italy, in alliance with the European Union, are prepared to go to prevent that happening.
So who's going to be keeping Italy afloat, during the Draghi period? I mean, Merkel is going to get the Germans to pay for this. She's going to get the EU to pay for this. I mean, there's no doubt that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure a Salvini populist right government doesn't win any elections. But I mean, Merkel is going to actually flip the bill for all of this.
It is incredible. I mean, to repeat again, the Italian people voted one way, and the outcome they've achieved, they've been presented with, is the opposite one to the one they voted for. They voted a Eurosceptic government, and they now have an Euro-integrationist, in fact, the arch-Euro-integrationist, as their prime minister. It is surreal, doesn't describe it. I mean, it's actually, I would say, it's almost two fingers up at the people of Italy. Whether they'll see it that way, whether they are so cynical and fatalistic now that they'll just accept it, is another question. But that's what they will do. Now, in terms of what Draghi is going to do, obviously Merkel herself is not going to come along and give direct German loans to Italy. That's not the way Merkel ever works. And with the situation in Germany now becoming increasingly unstable, with German criticism of Merkel now building up very loudly. I mean, she's taking an absolute pounding in Germany over the pandemic issues from the media. I mean, Bild Zeitung is, on the rampage. So she's not going to do that. She's not going to transfer funds directly to Italy. But her whole strategy is to keep things as they are. So she will greenlight more transfers to Italy from the European Central Bank, where, of course, Christine Lagarde is Angela Merkel's friend, and Christine Lagarde is Mario Draghi's friend. Always remember, we're all talking about a very tightly knit group of people. And she will also make sure that this EU slush fund that we were hearing so much about, the 750 billion euro pandemic relief fund, that starts sending more money to Italy faster. Some of it, obviously, in the form of direct grants. Well, I expect and predict that we will now see loans being sent to Italy too, and Draghi is the person who is going to accept them. That's what we're going to start to see happen. And of course, those loans will come with conditions, and those conditions will lead to a further ramping up of policies within Italy itself, which are intended to restructure Italy, the Italian economy, and the Italian society, so that they become more dependent on the EU funding, even more dependent on the EU funding than they were before, in order to make any real break, any notion of Italy breaking away from the EU if, say, Salvini is ever elected, intellectually or economically impossible. That, I think, is the plan. In other words, lock Italy in as much as possible to make it impossible for Italy to break out. And that's what I think we're going to see happen.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. What they want to do is they want to destroy Italy. They want to take it to the point where it's so weak that it can't stand on its own 2 feet. And the only institution it can depend on is going to be the European Union. I mean, that is their plan, to destroy the country, to get the country to the point of near death, but not all the way. And in that case, they're going to have no choice but to be completely subservient to Brussels.
That's exactly what I think they wanted to do. I mean, what did they say? That the Romans created a desert and called it peace. That was what the Romans supposedly did. Well, it seems to me, whether that was true of the Romans or not, it is actually true of the EU. It creates a desert and it calls it democracy. It creates a desert and it calls it, a European integration. The European movement, the European Union moves forward towards its ever, brighter uplands, creating utter devastation along the way. And that's, I think, what it's all basically come down to now. The EU, the leadership of the EU in Brussels, in Berlin, in Frankfurt, wherever, they are now more focused on pressing forward with their integrationist plan to the point that they're prepared to shatter societies and economies right across the Union. Now, I have to make one important qualification. However badly they knock Italy about, if there is political will, Italy can still break away. I mean, they can't eliminate the country entirely, and I mean, it wouldn't be in their interests to. But the question is would there be the will to do it? Would a Salvini brothers government be strong enough to face down the enormous resistance there would be if Italy had been completely smashed and made dependent on the EU? I have to say, I think we're very far from the point where people are driven to such a point of despair, if you like, that they would be prepared to say, well, enough with the euro. However bad the situation would be if we moved away from it, it would be worse if we stuck with it. But that option, in theory, is still there. But as a question of practical politics, perhaps it's been taken away.
Right. It's like, they don't want to kill the patient off, but they want the patient to be just sick enough so that patient doesn't come to the end, but that patient is 100% reliant on the medicine that they're going to give that patient. And it's a terrible medicine, but it's a medicine that will keep him, just to the point where he's not completely destroyed, but, he's sustainable, but he's completely, at the mercy of the people administering the medicine. It is such a toxic relationship. I mean, it is absolutely so toxic and sinister and just terrible.
Well, what it is doing is that it is stifling the life out of Europe. I mean, if you take your mind back, I mean, Europe has been many things, but it has been one of the great drivers of, world culture, civilization, economics, politics, you name it. And all that is being choked away because it's all operating now within a structure that is becoming increasingly destructive of everything it touches. It is choking the life out of European societies. And this is accelerating. So in a way, it's like a sort of gigantic parasite that's attached itself to the European system and is draining the life out of it it gets stronger, Europe gets weaker. Eventually, maybe it will kill the host, and at that point, it will itself die. But then, of course, by that point, the host itself will be dead. I really worry about the direction Europe is taking, and I wonder what will happen to Europe in the end. But already you can see that societies, other countries that are outside the system, the United States, China, Russia, Britain, they're moving forward in their own ways. Not always well. Sometimes things go wrong in different ways, but they have a real politics, if you like, a real economic rhythm. And Europe, that's vanishing. And one wonders to what extent people in Europe understand this now, still. Unfortunately, because Europe has been such a rich region for so long, it's insulated. Many people are insulated from the reality that's happening to them. And of course, there's also the, if you like, Stockholm syndrome aspect, that in an abusive relationship, you can get this very strange psychological condition where the abuser, rather the abused, feels dependent and is attached to, in some ways, the abuser. And that gives the abuser ever more power. But it's a very, very depressing picture, and logically an unsustainable one. But I do start to wonder now.
Right. I think that what's happening in Europe and in Italy and all of Europe and Germany is also happening in the US and in Canada. And it's this neoliberal ideology that, it destroys culture, history, spirituality, creativity. It just decimates everything it touches, and it leaves everything conformist and just sterile and without meaning. But I mean, that's the plan that they have set forth for the West. So I mean, I think this is a European thing. It's a Western thing. It's a neoliberal thing.
I agree. I mean, think of all the enormous cultural and scientific achievements that used to come out of Europe once upon a time. I mean, what is happening today which is analogous to that? I mean, what great books are being written, if you like, what great buildings are being built. It's all becoming increasingly conformist and sterile and imposed conformism as well. I mean, it's losing, as I said, its vitality, its energy. And yes, I am, extremely worried about the situation in the US. But the US still, I think, possesses stronger antibodies than Europe seems to be able to do. We'll see what happens. Perhaps Italy still has, as I said, the size and the weight to achieve a change. And of course, we mustn't forget that, in Germany, which is the centre of all of this, Germany, it's a misconception, by the way, to think of Germany as the beneficiary of the system. It is in some ways, but it's a loser in many others. There's a very interesting article that I read recently, which points out that, yes, Germany's economy may be doing well relative to the others in Europe, but given how badly the other European economies are doing, that's really not a comment. It's not really a positive comment about Germany. Compared with the other economies around the world, Germany is practically stagnating. So Germany itself is not really benefiting from this system. And of course, it remains far and away the most powerful country in Europe. And it may be that things will start to crack and change there also. But at the moment, we are in this stagnation trap, and it's not very obvious or easy to see how it can change. And these latest manoeuvres that we've seen in Italy must fill one with concern.
All right, we'll leave it there. Alexander Eckers, thank you very much. Guys, make sure to visit our channels and BitChute on Rumble and on Odyssey. Also, make sure to please help donate, actually. Help this channel out on PayPal, Subscribe, Star, Patreon, and Bitcoin. Also, make sure to see Alexander's channel. You'll find a link down below. My channel, you'll find a link down below. And of course, go to the Duran shop, pick up some great merch, some long sleeve shirts or a mug. You'll find a link down below for that as well.
Absolutely, and we've got our wonderful magic mugs, our great shirts. We have very positive feedback from our viewers who buy things from our shop, and it's a way of supporting the Duran. And God knows we certainly need your support if we're going to continue to provide content like this. And look up our other channels and find us on our other platforms and support us as you can. And please join us for our next program.
All right. Thank you very much. Till next time, everybody. Take care.